Welcome to another podcast from Finance Connect on the European asset finance industry. I'm Richard O'Donoghue, and today we're going to conclude our series of discussions on AI. In our last two podcasts, we got the perspectives of Richard Houston from Vamos and Brian Murphy from our sponsors, Alpha Systems. Today, we're going to focus on the implications of AI for people. And I'm delighted to be joined by Colin Tovey, the Managing Director of Resilient, to discuss this topic. Colin, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So maybe tell us a little bit about your background and what Resilient does.
Sure. A Resilient is a talent practice, essentially, but it's one focused on proactive market mapping and identifying key individuals for implementation and business transformation and change. All of the work we do is in asset, auto, equipment finance and leasing globally. Of course, being a UK business, a lot of our work is here, but we equally do a fair amount of work across Europe and further afield, especially the US. All around system implementation, working with vendors, with integrators, lenders, leasers, and captives.
So you would be seeing a lot of activity at the moment, I guess, in the AI space.
Yes, we are.
I guess otherwise we wouldn't have invited you on this podcast. There wouldn't have been
Absolutely.
much purpose. But I mean, every day you open the newspapers, if we still have newspapers, but at least you look online and you see stories of doom and gloom. You see, people like Meta laying off people saying AI is going to replace these roles. You see all the predictions from, say, Microsoft AI that entry-level roles will be replaced. Is it doom and gloom out there from your perspective?
Certainly not in the way the headlines suggest. I think those big businesses have a different stance when the majority of their workforce is based on tools and systems and roles that can be augmented or made more efficient by the use of AI agents, bots, and so on. Certainly for our niche, it hasn't really hit as hard. General banking and core banking, it's had a little bit more impact, but in asset, auto, equipment finance and leasing, not so much yet. Maybe in the future, but not yet.
With us on a survey earlier in the year around AI adoption, workforce redesign, operational readiness. And one of the things that struck me when we looked at that was most people are doing something around AI. I think it was only 11% that said they were still considering it. So 89% were doing something, but most were in that proof of concept stage. Does that sort of reflect what you just said earlier, that maybe tech companies like Microsoft are more advanced than, say, our industry would be?
I think so. I think the asset, auto, equipment finance space is focused really on um, removing burden, removing duplication, removing problems with data processing and customer service, which is why Richard from Vamos, their solution is focused on putting the human back in the room for more time and replacing the bits that could be taken away, but keeping, that human element in the mix. From what we see, whilst many want to, especially from a board level, want to push the efficiencies of AI, not a lot of progress has been made because there's been quite a few snags in the way. So what we've got from the survey, at least, is 51% that are still in proof of concept, and only a fifth of those that have actually made any meaningful developments or return on investment on it yet. So we really are in the early adoption stages. It certainly hasn't hit the workforce planning piece as much.
And maybe just talk a little bit about where you are seeing progress. You mentioned Richard from Vamos around operational efficiency. Can you give any examples to our listeners of where you have seen AI maybe making a difference to roles?
I think it's in case file and CMS handling of inquiries and queries. The businesses I've seen that have gained the most traction have been those that have maybe helped a business handle more inquiries, produce more proposals. They haven't been really focused yet on the underwriting parts, or more so it's been efficiency around gaining more market share or processing more inquiries rather than it has making more decisions. Even when it gets to that point, the decisioning elements will be based on the smaller case files. Until it's proven, I think there's a lot of hesitancy still there yet.
Again, one of the things that came out of the survey was, most people were not planning to reduce their workforces due to AI. It was more they were going to retrain or redeploy.
Yeah.
Again, I think it was about 2/3 said that was their plan. Again,
Indeed.
are you seeing examples of that? If you think about what you touched on earlier, maybe operational efficiencies, are people being redeployed or retrained on the back of some of those achievements that have come about as a result of AI?
I think it's a fast evolving topic where in the very early days, a board would have probably seen that they could have replaced a division, a team, or removed certain functions that could be done more efficiently or better. The truth is, when they've got into those projects, they simply found that without the domain knowledge to
Mm.
implement systems and manage it, the AI is only as good as what you put in. So data become a problem. The design of workforce efficiency and workforce kind of planning and workflows all became topics that needed more time than they ever imagined at the first place. I think AI is such a buzzword these days. I don't think many realized actually it's going to be knee deep before you get there. You're going to have to turn it back on yourself many times before you actually reach an accomplishment.
So do you in your industry, I mean you're hiring people that are going into this space or
Mhm.
facilitating their hiring. Do the people tend to have AI expertise or are you seeing more domain expertise with perhaps people having a knowledge of AI or the capability to learn more about how to leverage it?
That's the most interesting question for me. Obviously AI is only a few years old. And even then, it's only in the last 12, 18 months it's really gaining the traction that it's going to need to get significant ROI to bottom line. Um, at the moment, what you've got is a call for specialists with domain knowledge that have either come from a system integrator or a software vendor who may be on the integration or the data side of this, who have then made a play for their own career into the AI space, who have then maybe used their own time to even attend courses or gain further knowledge. And they've pivoted their own careers into organizations whereby they're able to get that exposure. So we're at the early stage of seeing anybody that could be classed as an AI specialist in asset auto equipment finance. There are a few exceptions to that. I mean, we know the ones that are out there, but there just are not as many yet, as early on as it is to say there are loads.
And I mean, again, I guess for some of the listeners here who maybe are more mid-career and they may have domain expertise, but perhaps not as familiar with AI, are there opportunities for those, or should they believe in the doom and gloom?
Certainly not the doom and gloom. It's not necessarily that it's going to be there anyway. I just think that it's going to take time before it gets there. We're years, from my perspective, out from that yet. If you think we're 3 years into AI generally, and within that time, we're only an early kind of case study and phase, and most of those organizations really haven't seen benefit from those yet. So before that scales out, there's a lot more time and change that's needed. And I'm sure the vendors will have their own perspective on this in time too. I've noticed quite a big push from a few.
And so what advice when people come to you, I mean, I think you mentioned, is it 20 or 30,000 candidates you have on your books? It was an enormous number you mentioned to me the
Mm.
other day.
Over the years, we've gathered 26,000. Uh,
26,000.
That's individuals who have not just necessarily in this space right now, but have been for a significant period of their career. But if you put into that perspective, that's all software vendors, main and fringe, all integrators, all lenders, leasers, captives, and
Yeah.
other ones that have any form of finance, lending, or leasing capacity. And they all have systems, solutions, processes, target operating models that will need transformation at some point to keep up with the demands or regulations. So when you think about it that way, and also put on top of that, it's not just who's there now, it's who's been there previously,
Mm.
then that's where the number derives.
Now, a quick word about our sponsors, Alpha, who are a leading software provider for the auto, equipment, and asset finance industries. Their core platform, Alpha Systems, delivers end-to-end functionality for origination, servicing, and collections, helping customers modernize legacy systems, automate processes, and scale globally. What really sets it apart is its flexibility. It's fully configurable, multi-country, multi-currency, and designed to handle even the most complex portfolios. And that's not all. For providers who want speed without compromise, Alpha Start is a cost effective, pre configured solution that gets you up and running with Alpha systems in just a few months. If you're ready to simplify your operations and scale with confidence, or simply want to learn more about Alpha, visit alphasystems.com. That's ALFA systems.com. Advice you give to people who come in and say, look, I'm mid career, I've got, say, domain expertise in an area like credit, for example. I've worked on transformation projects within the company I'm in. Let's say they're in an asset finance company, but I
Mhm.
really don't know a lot about AI. You know, what would you sort of, as a general piece of advice, give to them so that they benefit from what's likely to happen around the workforce over the next 3 to 5 years?
I think my first consideration in that sense would be their background. Do they have the data analytical elements that are going to launch them into this, or are they on the operational efficiency side? Depends on really what they've done until that point. Nonetheless, I mean, you and I both know there are a ton of AI courses out there, but a lot of that growth in somebody's career will be driven by their own interest in a subject. It'll be a lot of self study, and then it'll be careful positioning of themselves against projects that have that AI element. The good thing is that many of them are in early stage, and the domain knowledge will help shape those AI platforms or solutions as they
Hmm.
unfold. Most of them are going to be customized and a combination and stack of different tools, depending on the use case, the lender, leaser, captive. So I think there's plenty of scope for people to get a foot in the door, but they have to want it and they have to pursue it.
Yeah, which I guess is the same for
Yeah,
it's
most
been the same for the last 20, 30 years. It's just a different level of subject matter expertise that's now required that perhaps we haven't had in the past. I
it's
want to,
certainly prime time to make a stance though,
yeah, yeah, definitely.
because they're early in they're early in the pursuit now before it gets saturated, and it will. But there's so many still oblivious and letting AI slide by, and it will have an impact. So if there are individuals out there with 20 years domain knowledge, maybe from a BA, implementation, migration, or data level, that have been involved in system deployment or change, if they're looking to add a new string to the boat and stand out, boat and stand out from the crowd, now's the time to get that advantage.
Yeah, and just maybe talk a little bit about. I mean, you're placing people still,
Mhm.
and again, we discussed that you're placing them in the UK, obviously being your home market, but also right across Europe and in the US as well. What
Yeah.
sort of people are in demand at the moment, or is that too broad a question?
No, I mean, for all intensive purposes, there are three sides to that equation, from my perspective at least. There are the businesses who obviously need the systems, those that provide them, and those that integrate them. And of
Uh-huh.
course, there's a few specialists in between. Those three sides need to interface to each other. And the better they can with the right subject matter expertise and the right individuals the right platform knowledge, the more efficiently the business will deliver the project and the benefits they'll get from it. So it's everything from a relationship point of view, post pre-sale, right the way through to handover with a system deployed. And of course, all the aftercare, because typically these things are 2 or 3 years in
Mm.
deployment. Then they have an ongoing kind of business as usual element where there are typically more projects that come out of it to build on top of the solution. So skills wise, everything from BAs to system implementation specialists, configuration analysts, change analysts, individuals that focus more on the technical integration side, right up to a technical architecture level, and all the project program portfolio, PMO management expertise in between that. Of course, there's many skills I'm reaching, missing out in that, but as
Mhm.
a conclusion, it's those elements that we see the greatest demand for.
And mainly in kind of optimization, as you think about asset finance, going back to the earlier conversation, is it in credit and collections, or does it tend to be broad and they just bring in people and then work out what projects we'll put them on?
It really depends on where that originating project is. One business, it might be focused on the front office elements.
Mhm.
Another, it might be on payout optimization. Some organizations, it might be on the whole piece and optimizing it for the benefit of tomorrow. It really just depends. Other organizations may be 2, 3 years and optimizing in their deployment. Others might be at the point where they're replacing. And of course, the variation of different types of lending and leasing means that every solution in this is different, and every vendor's platform, whilst it's similar in many ways, is unique to itself.
So, a question I often ask people is, if it's a tough environment, you read in the papers again for graduates and for people starting their careers. I mean, based on what you see today and how you see things developing, what advice would you give to a 22-year-old coming out of university and looking for a role? What sort of thoughts do you have on that?
I mean, the thing is, we both know that most don't come out and say, I'm going into the asset auto equipment finance space. The FLA and other organizations do a great job of encouraging that, bringing people together and career fairs and so on. If somebody gets a foot in the door, it's typically through referral, I find. When they do, it really is about being taken under the wing of whatever organization has given it.
Mm,
From there, I'm just hopeful that people don't jump out of the industry before they get to the level of knowledge they need in order to be a subject matter expert, because it really is at that point that your knowledge itself from seeing it from different organizations becomes really valuable. So my best advice would be commit to the space, make it your role to, your job to really learn the bigger scope, not just the challenges in the role that's in front of you. But if you have a strategic interest in this space, that you should take on as much in terms of learning and development and professional study as you can to really broaden your scope. I'd also say that the networks and the people in this community are incredible, and you really need to attend the events. You really need to have a presence and to make your connections, because
mm.
that's where real opportunity comes from.
And I mean, again, just build on that a little bit. Work from home versus remote versus hybrid. What are your thoughts on that, particularly for people again earlier in their career?
I mean, that early in your career is dictated by the employer. Well, I would say though, when you get to a kind of middle to senior level in this space, I'm talking 45, 50K upwards, most of the software vendors and system integrators have a policy where you'll be only in the office for maybe 20% of the time. And that's really comes down to the fact that their clients themselves will move from time to time,
Yeah.
and the projects will too. And for that reason, people can't be expected to commit. And most of them naturally have a kind of 70-30 or 80-20 split anyway. Little bit more in the lender leaser captive side. It's probably 50-50 in some cases there.
Yeah, I think some of the captives have certainly pushed for return to office,
Yeah.
and again, I think you look around at people starting. I think it is important to be in the office and understand personal dynamics. And
Yes.
you can certainly learn all of the theoretical stuff and the educational stuff remotely, but how you interact with people, and back to your point, how do you network and build that network? I think that's very hard to do if you're not in an
Yeah.
office.
You need to be around people and great influencers to really, really learn. So I'd say, yeah, if you're younger and earlier in your career, you get face to face and spend as much time as you can collaborating and innovating with your colleagues, because that's where the real learning happens.
Yeah. So maybe kind of to finish off a little bit, I'd just like to understand the impact of AI in your business. And again, you read on LinkedIn in particular constant complaints about can't get past the algorithm. Clearly there's biases in the algorithm. Again, all these things that are said. Maybe talk a little bit about that, number one. But number two is where in your kind of business is AI going to take you?
Okay. I think for broad-based recruitment agencies, AI probably has a different place for a business with, 200-300 recruiters than it perhaps
Mm.
does here. For them, it'll be about efficiency or recording. It will be about, taking the notes and putting them in the system, transcribing, data extraction parts. For us, we're a smaller based business. Our operation works around intelligence. It's about understanding who's implementing what, where, why, and when, how
Mhm.
far they're in, who are the main drivers for that change, what are the business looking for, what are the businesses looking for in terms of output, what are the timelines, what combination of tools are they using. So for us, the intel really is the element that AI can bring all of that together to help us better understand what's happening, to help us help us act on fact rather than fiction, understanding where the needs and demands are from a resource point of view, and specifically what platforms are required. So you probably saw we recently took on an AI GTM engineer
Hmm.
who's building an internal LMS for us, rather more than what you'd see as a chatbot customer service piece. We're not interested in an AI taking part in any calls because I think it really is a human connection what we
Yeah.
do. What it is doing is helping us bring all the data and intel together so that we can act more intelligently in our own operation. So our matching is more bespoke and intuitive and unique so that we can be more accurate in our,
And how challenging has it been to bring the data together without revealing any state secrets here?
no state secrets, but there's just so many sources
Yeah.
and so many conflicting sources. So it's certainly not easy, but to be able to get to a point where you have an internal AI that you can query and question based on your own view of the market. And if you're looking to take a candidate, for example, out to market, it can help guide where that person would be best useful and most impactful. There are a number of other connotations that can be put to this, but yeah, not easy. And eliminating ghosts in the data
Mm.
or false positives in the data is key. But I guess, our process has been done and designed in such a way that we're acting on the output and
Yeah.
it's the human who acts on it. So we've got a level of filtration anyway. It's going to be 6 to 12 months before we get to an operating model, but luckily we're knee deep in that already.
I was going to ask you, I mean, if you were kind of to say rating it on 1 to 10 scale, with 10 being this is as good as we're ever going to get it to, where would you say it is today, and 12 months out, where do you think it could get to?
Our own internal system.
Yeah, just how you're using it today in your own business.
It's probably a three or four out of 10 at the moment, but it's as soon as it gets to 5 or 6 and the languages start coming alive and they're questionable and we can interrogate them, which we're not far from, then it's going to save a lot of time.
Right.
The key benefit for us right now is not just being able to look at who's in a business, it's being able to understand who was in the same business previously and who were the virtual teams that were there historically, who was
Okay.
involved in the deployment that finished last year. So we can build forward and bring collective knowledge groups together and deploy team based work instead of just individual appointment. That's the key benefit I see.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting as you describe it, and correct me if I'm wrong, is you're using AI to grow the business. This isn't about
Yeah.
replacing people. This is about expansion and growing.
It is. I mean, on the back of this, we'll hire more consultants to take the model out to market, and there's certainly plenty of room and plenty of growth, and we're in plenty of demand to be able to scale this and have specialists in certain fields, whether that's around certain platforms or that's around either one focus on lending, one focus on leasing, one focus on commercial finance, and so on and so forth. So there's plenty of scope.
So I think that's the suitable note to end on, because it's an optimistic note, and we try to end these podcasts on a positive note. And I think, look, you've given us a lot of food for thought. I think what I've taken away is it's not as pessimistic an outcome for people. In fact, there's a lot of positivity. You're seeing that today. And in many ways, if we use AI correctly, we should be able to grow rather than be concerned about it displacing people. And maybe it means we need to reskill ourselves, but that's always been the case. So perhaps it's not as different as perhaps it looks, or you would be led to believe by what you read in the press.
There's going to be a number of social, I guess, rejection is the wrong word, but social rejection layers in an organization before people are displaced at mass. It's certainly in our field where you've got individuals who've grown their career and developed teams that have been successful. They're not going to want to leave that legacy. Maybe they're at the point of retirement themselves or not far off, and they want to see that team fulfill its destiny before these changes take fold. We will protect each other for a certain element of that time, especially when they know it's so hard to recreate what they already have working. So there's going to be some careful decisions from a board level down until there are proven case study with significant data to show this model working, it's going to be difficult for them to turn off a team that already works. So it will happen down the line, but I think it will happen fractionally and in time.
That's backed up by the survey that you did. And for
Absolutely,
anyone
it
who's
is.
interested, that is available on the Finance Connect website. And I'd highly recommend it. There's a lot of really interesting data points in there. So, Colin, thank you
Yeah.
so much for coming along today, for chatting about this, giving us maybe a different perspective. And also, we've spoken about the technical aspects of AI with Richard in the past, and also with Brian. It's nice to get somebody who's kind of more, you're still focused on the technical aspects, but has a human perspective. And I think, I leave with a more positive outlook than perhaps I started the conversation with. So thanks so much for
Yes.
coming in
It's
and
definitely
sharing.
not doom and gloom. You're very welcome.
Thanks for listening to this podcast from Finance Connect. We're hearing lots of worrying predictions about the impact of AI on employment, and it was great to get a more positive perspective from Colin. While it seems inevitable that AI will transform workplaces, the timing of this remains uncertain. So we should have some time to adjust to this new world. However, we need to use that time wisely so that our skills remain relevant in an AI centric world. A combination of domain expertise combined with an understanding of how best to leverage AI tools may not make us completely immune to workplace disruption, but it will put us in a good place to benefit from the transformation that AI is bringing to all our workplaces. If you've enjoyed this podcast, look out for future episodes on your preferred platform every 2 weeks. You can also find all of the past episodes on those platforms. Thanks as always to our sponsors Alpha Systems, and keep sending us your suggestions for future guests and topics. In the meantime, thanks for listening.